Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Another transfer roundup. This time it's a bunch of Sam Lee news. There is a couple of other pieces that, if I have the time, I may touch on because I've read some of the other reports. But Sam Lee, over the last couple of days, has said some interesting things about a couple of players, and again, it spread over a couple of days. Some of it was 2 days ago now, before we played Celtic, but he came out with some more stuff today, sort of ran this morning. So I thought I'd round up what he had to say. He's an incredibly reliable journalist, probably one of the better ones, despite what some people have to say sometimes. So I'll just run through the news. Of course, the bulk of it is on Ederson. There's a couple of bits about Julian Alvarez and even something on Kyle Walker. But the main two is obviously Ederson and Alvarez. They're probably the two most talked about names right now in the space. So before I unravel what he has to say and give my thoughts, if you do me a massive favour and please hit a like on this video, it'd be massively appreciated, and subscribe if you are new. I said I'd be back with a transfer update potentially before we play AC Milan, and I wanted to wait for maybe slightly more news, see if there was anything first before I made a video, and I got it. So I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to start with Julian Alvarez because there's only 2 tweets about that, and then I'll move on to Ederson. But the first tweet about Julian Alvarez was from a couple of days ago. The first one via Sam Lee, of course. This is what all of this news is from. Man City want a fee starting around 70 million euros for Julian Alvarez this summer, with another 20 million euros in add-ons. So about 90 million euros, which is probably like 75 million pounds in total, something like that, including add-ons, which is around the ballpark that I'd want. I mean, we only paid 15 million pounds for him, so it would be a massive profit. But he's under a long-term contract, no pressure to sell, and we'd have to replace him, so it's going to take a hefty fee. And then the second one here, which was from this morning, again, Sam Lee. Julian Alvarez wants to leave Man City, but he may find himself priced out of a move. Both he and his family would welcome a move to a warmer climate, and he wants more game time at Man City, who are asking for roughly £60 million plus 17 million in add-ons, which again, that totals £77 million. So it's 75 to 80 million pounds. Of course, again, it's a reasonable asking price, I think, on City's behalf. I think that with his contract running until 2028, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I don't actually know. I know he's got, a good 4 years, maybe more potentially. I think it's 4 till 2028. On his contract, so we're under no pressure to sell. He's our only other option to play as an out-and-out number 9 other than Haaland. So again, if we were to lose him, he would need replacing. We need to go into the market, and I don't think having looked at some of the names we've been linked to, I think it tells you all you need to know about the market. It's not great right now. So even though we'd have to replace him, it's not, it's easier said than done, really, isn't it? So I think the high price is warranted. Again, he's under contract. He's a young player. In terms of, his age, he's still got a lot more left in the tank, potentially more development left as well to get better. And again, we need to replace him. He's not... He's something that, apart from Haaland, again, we don't have a number 9. I know we'd be willing to probably go to a false 9 and potentially replace him with a midfield player. I think I did see something about that the other day, that if we were to lose him, it would probably be a midfield player that we'd bring in, because that's kind of where he spends, the majority of his time, playing in this number 10 role. So again, he'd still need replacing regardless of what we bring in, but I wouldn't. I'm not going to say I'm his biggest fan. I'd be okay with losing him if it was for the right price, but I do think the article kind of says it there that he's probably going to be priced out of a move. I don't think Atletico Madrid, which are probably prime candidates to take him off our hands, can afford that, at least not right now. They'd struggle to. And we're not going to dip our asking price because we don't need to, because we could probably ask for the same next summer. So in terms of Julian Alvarez, I don't think he's going to leave. He may want to, like it says there, he may want to leave. He may view that his chances of getting more game time, lie elsewhere, which I'd understand, given the players that we have in the squad. But at the end of the day, he signed a contract. He's contracted. There's nothing he can do. He signed that contract. So, we're in charge of his future, essentially. We set the price. And he just kind of has to stick with it. So I don't think he's going to leave. I really think it's unlikely, but I don't think he's the type of player who's going to kick off about it. He'll probably just get his head down and focus on his football and, revisit it in 12 months. And if he still wants to leave, he still wants to leave. That's kind of the gravity of the situation. I don't think there really is much more to say on that apart from we've set our price. We know what it's going to take, but I don't think anyone's going to pay that money. So that's all on Julian Alvarez. That was kind of the bulk of it there. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting and a little bit sticky. Because I'm going to move on to Ederson now. Starts with a couple from a few days ago. Ederson is keen to move to Saudi Arabia and would join another club. Ederson is keen to move to Saudi Arabia and would join another club after Al Nassr, with Al Ittihad now on the scene, but Man City expect their asking price of around £50 million to be too high. And then these are the ones today. Ederson was ready to sign a new Man City contract around March this year, but by the end of the season, some of the goalkeeper's compatriots already in Saudi Arabia were talking with certainty about his impending arrival. Ederson would prefer to move to a European club this summer, but he recognises that none will pay the fee that Man City are asking. It may be the case that Saudi Arabian clubs do not get near it either, but they are more likely to. Ederson was affected by the praise Stefan Ortega received for his one-on-one save versus Tottenham's Son Heung-min last season, including the suggestion largely from the Man City fans that Ederson himself would not have saved it. This is where it gets a bit murky, because that last tweet in particular, now there is one more which is not from Sam Lee, and I don't know the reliability of it, so I'll kind of leave that for a sort of separate add-on after I'm finished going through these four. But that last one in particular, it's sticky. It's a very sticky situation. I mean, if we start with sort of the first three that kind of say the same thing or similar things, is that he just kind of wants out, or that's, he's leaning towards leaving. And he the third one there, he'd prefer to move to a European club, but he realizes that no one's going to pay the money. So he's okay with the move to Saudi. He's keen. The first one there, he's keen to a move to Saudi Arabia because he wants to stay in Europe, but he knows that no one's going to pay the money, and there's a chance that a Saudi club does. But again, I think it's a similar situation to Alvarez in terms of he's not contracted for as long and we can't demand as much, and we're not. But I still don't think anyone meets the asking price. The asking price of, it said on the first one there, £50 million. I think it was about 60 million euros, which is an okay price. I think that's kind of what the max we can demand, because I think he's about 30 now and he doesn't have the longest left on his contract. And he seems pretty unsettled by all the things you hear, but I mean, yeah, just before I kind of get on to some of the deeper stuff, I don't want to lose him. With Alvarez, I'm okay with losing Alvarez. I really am. I can live with it, knowing that, whatever replacement we get in, fine. We already have players in them positions anyways. With Ederson, it's a bit different. I know Ortega's been pretty good when called upon, but it's very different being a first choice than a second choice. Stefan Ortega is not. He's, for as good as he is, and for as good as we say he is, he's too good to be a number two. He's not good enough to be a number one. At least not here, anyway. He's not a number one goalkeeper. again, it's so much different being the first choice and the second choice. He's usually playing cup teams. He's usually playing against teams that are either heavily rotated or are in a different division to what we're in, and playing with players that sometimes don't play here as well. So it's very much different. I'm not saying Stefan Ortega is a bad keeper, but if the plan is, if we lose Ederson, to sign a second choice and have Stefan Ortega as the first choice, I think it's the complete wrong decision. I really do. I really think that's a mistake to be doing that. So in terms of the asking price, I hope nobody meets the asking price, because I want to keep Ederson as number one. Listen, that's about as much as I can give on, you know, the logistical side of things. Again, I think it's a similar situation. I don't think anyone's going to pay the asking price, because, I mean, if we look at Al Nassr, they cooled off when they didn't meet the asking price. Now Al Ittihad are involved. That's kind of cooled off a little bit now that the asking price hasn't been met. Things could change. You never know. I mean, the fact that he was willing to sign a new contract, but, you know, had his head turned by Saudi Arabia, maybe it's just a question of when, not if. Now, the last tweet that I have here, before I move on to the last piece by Sam Lee, which is, I'm not going to spend too long talking about, but the last bit here is not from Sam Lee. It's from Man City Brazil, which is a Brazilian aggregator or news poster. So the tweet's in Portuguese, and I translated it. And the reason why I left it till after I'd talked about the Sam Lee stuff is because I don't know whether this is fact, thought, or opinion. I don't know how reliable it is. I don't know, again, what the nature of it is. I don't know whether this is just an opinion or whether they have like some sort of inside knowledge. But this is what the translated tweet reads. Ederson didn't want Ortega to renew with Man City. Shortly after the end of the season, he fueled rumours of a possible exit through Fabrizio Romano, suggesting an either him or me stance. If that is true, that is incredibly childish, and completely wrong. He's had the backing of the manager throughout the whole time. Pep has said nothing but he is my number one. Even after the Son save, even, you know, within all the praise to Stefan Ortega, Pep doubled down on his goalkeeper. He said, Ederson is my number one. That's not going to change. Now, he's taken the stance of, it presumably doesn't care, and the either him or me stance is incredibly childish. If you are conceding your starting goalkeeper spot to a guy who is second choice and is the manager's second choice, you are still number one. If you are conceding it before it's even been lost, just because he signed a new contract and he pulled off a couple of good saves, that's childish and that's just completely wrong. But the reason why I left this is because I don't know how reliable this is, but it kind of makes sense. I understand why he would be annoyed at some of the praise that Ortega received, because some of the things that were said about him were very, very harsh. The suggestion that he wouldn't have saved it is very harsh. He's made saves like that in the past. I hope someone doesn't bring up a clip of me saying that he wouldn't have saved that, because that would kind of go against the point. I hope I didn't say that, because again, it's incredibly harsh. Champions League final. I mean, just go and watch some of the saves that he made there. Like, it was completely wrong. So I understand that he might be a little bit ticked off with some of the praise, considering it kind of went against him as well. However, the stance of him or me, you know, you can't have both. You either got to choose to extend my contract or his, and, you know, whoever you choose is your number one, is childish. And if that's the stance that he's taken, then so be it. If he wants to be a child, then maybe it's best we get rid of him. If he's going to be this petty about it, then maybe it's best we see him on his way, because that's not really the mentality you want to have of a guy who's not willing to fight for his place. We all saw that with Cancelo when Rico Lewis came in. it was almost it's him or it was a. It wasn't a him or me. It was a how dare you start this guy instead of me? He's only a child. I'm Cancelo. Look how good I am. Even go back, 6 or 7 years when Gabriel Jesus was brought in. Aguero was annoyed that he lost his starting spot, but he knuckled down, got on, and proved that he was so much better than Gabriel Jesus and got his starting spot back. So if his mentality is, you got to choose between one of the goalkeepers instead of fighting for his place, then again, it's not the mentality that I want him to have. So maybe it's best we get rid of it. I really don't know. It's a sticky situation. It's not the clearest of situations. I don't know what you make of it. Let me know that in the comments. And in terms of my overall thoughts, I'm shocked if that him or me stance is true. But I if it's not, I hope we keep him, because again, I think having Ortega as number one choice is a mistake. But at the end of the day, if he's going to be petty about it, then he can move on, no bother. I'm not really too fussed about that one. So that's kind of Ederson. Again, it's very, very murky. But it is what it is. And then there's one more piece, which I won't spend long on at all, because it's not really anything new from Sam Lee. Again, this is from a couple of days ago. There is uncertainty around Kyle Walker's future, and Man City would step up interest in Bayer Leverkusen's Jeremy Frimpong if he leaves, but the expectation is that few, if any, players will depart this summer. And that kind of leans into the other two with Alvarez and Ederson. I don't really think there's going to be many outgoings. There's really not much interest in any of the players that are actually, would be available to sign. You look at your potential Kovacic. I think there's been interest from Turkey. So there's not really been much interest in players that would be willing to let go easily. Not really much interest in Kyle Walker, even though that says there is uncertainty around his future. I haven't really seen, much interest, maybe some Saudi interest. But again, my thoughts remain the same on Kyle Walker. I would be more than happy to move him on. Get rid of him from the captaincy is my minimum expectation, but I'd be okay with letting him go. I think he's done his time, and his performances are declining. So I don't think there's as much need for him in the squad now, with the fact that his special nights against the Mbappes and Vinicius, well, they both play on the same team now, so you can't mark them both. So there's kind of less of a need for him, and with his declining performances, I'd be okay with letting him go if an offer came in. But I don't think Jeremy Frimpong's the answer. I've said that the whole time. Jeremy Frimpong is not a fullback; he's more of a winger. So he's not, really a Kyle Walker replacement. But I don't know whether we need to replace him. Those have been my thoughts all along, and I maintain that stance. That's my opinion. But again, the last part of that, few, if any, players will depart this summer, again, leans into the whole entire thing. I don't think anybody in this video that I've talked about is going to leave. Maybe Ederson is probably the most likely. But again, I don't know if anyone's going to even pay that price. So, listen, that's a transfer roundup. There was a bit more in and around from some other sources, but it wasn't really the greatest of news. This one was probably the biggest stuff from Sam Lee, because he's probably the most notable journalist out of the lot. So you let me know down in the comments what you think of these players. And all of these news pieces from Sam Lee. What do you make of, obviously, the Ederson stance? Do you think that report from Man City Brazil holds any truth? Because if so, it's disgraceful. Leave a like on this video on your way out if you would. Massively helps the channel, and subscribe if you are new. And I won't see you again until we play AC Milan, unless there is any other big break in transfer news, which I doubt it very much. So I'll see you on Sunday morning after we've played AC Milan.